Shut up and sit down.
In this edition of Inside the Author's Studio, we're going to be exploring character deaths. Ever since George R.R. Martin became an infamous serial killer of beloved fictional characters, other authors have tried to emulate him. Where many fall short in this endeavor is not realizing it takes just as much finesse to kill a character as it does to create them. Death scenes, like sex scenes or fight scenes, should move the plot forward in some way. You should never just throw it in to rack up the body count. When done right, a character death will have an emotional impact for both the audience and the remaining characters. However, it's what comes after that death and why it happened in the first place that can make or break a story. Going back to Martin, one of his most infamous death scenes is now referred to as the Red Wedding. In this scene, Martin kills multiple characters, some very integral to the main plot. This approach left fans of both the book and the TV series reeling, but compelled them to continue the journey to see what happens next. One of the other impactful deaths came early on and set the tone for the entire series. When Ned Stark, patriarch to the Stark clan, loses his head, you know immediately that this was going to be a gritty journey through Westeros. On the other hand, the death of fan favorite Daenerys Targaryen in the TV series finale left audiences in an uproar. Many had the argument that her state of mind towards the end, that led to her subsequent death, didn't match her character journey, which is one of the most important things to get right when drawing in an audience. Others felt the ending fell flat. For instance, actress Kristen Bell, who is a massive Game of Thrones fan, had this insightful take on the finale.
Game of Thrones. I will say, I thought the Jon and Khaleesi thing could have been a lot messier. This was an opinion given to me by Josh Lawson, who I was on House of Lies with, and when he was explaining this to me, because I was desperate to give that writer's room some respect. I was like, come on! They can't please everyone!
Right, and you're close to it. You've experienced sort of the same thing.
It was great. They tried, it was wonderful. This was their story. It's not my job to judge. And then Josh Lawson was like, yeah, but didn't you want to see more? Didn't you want to see her stumble back? Didn't you want to see him fight? Didn't you want to see her scream at him? Didn't you want to see him then just go for her? And I was like, yeah, I did. I wanted it to be messy like Ned Stark.
If your audience is left wanting more, you've made a big mistake with your character death. Another example of this is the TV series Dexter. At the end of the 4th season, Dexter's wife Rita is found brutally murdered. It was a shocking scene for viewers, and one they didn't see coming, as Rita had been around since the very beginning of the show. Even actress Julie Benz, who portrayed her, wasn't expecting the character to be killed off.
What's the worst thing that happened to you as an actress?
The worst thing? I mean,
in terms of rejection or whatever.
I mean, getting killed off Dexter was pretty bad. I had no idea. I had no idea that was coming.
When did they tell you?
3 days before. When you get called to the producers, you're being killed off a show. I mean, it's just, you just know that.
Were you getting an anxiety attack? Were you bawling?
I was really upset.
You loved the show.
I loved it. Also, it was such a great family. And then here you are being told okay, well, we're still going to get together as a family, but you're on your own. So it was really hard.
How long did it take you to recover from that?
It took a while.
The death scene itself made sense to shake up the perfect little world Dexter was building for himself. Rita had become his anchor, and he was slowly starting to see a future that didn't involve killing. However, instead of using Rita's death to steer Dexter to even more compelling places in his dark mind, the writers wasted it. They started to rehash the same tired plot points, and even brought in a new love interest for Dexter immediately before Rita's body was even cold. It began to seem like Rita wasn't important to the story, or to Dexter, so the shock of her death wore off, and eventually, so did the stale storytelling of the series. Now let's flip the script and look at a different way of handling a wife's death. In The Walking Dead, Rick's wife Lori winds up dying in childbirth. To top it off, her young son Carl has to put a bullet in her to make sure she doesn't come back as a zombie. This death was not only shocking, but it had emotional layers to it. And it fed into the overall story, as now Rick had a young baby to raise on his own. The only place the writers may have missed a beat was in the development of the Lori character. Her death didn't spark much sympathy because she wasn't a likable character. However, where they drew audiences in with an emotional tie was Carl. His duty to take out his own mother is complex and heartbreaking. This death worked perfectly in line with the story and its audience. Anytime you go from page to screen, you have to expect different choices will be made. However, one of the decisions showrunners made for the TV show was to kill off Quentin. He did not get his happy ending. In fact, it's Alice watching him die right in front of her eyes. This decision was met with mixed reviews from audiences. Both fans of the book and the show were up in arms and demanding Quentin come back. It also takes away from the original story being told. Even though the books and the series are two different entities, much like in Game of Thrones, both were the same until the show veered off course. The novels of the magician showcased an end battle as a fight that Alice takes on, not Quentin. He was never meant to be the chosen one. She was. And even though the show gave Alice her rightful sacrifice, they also took away from it by choosing to paint Quentin as the martyr instead. This really went against the story that author Lev Grossman was trying to tell with his novels. And from all accounts on his interviews, he hasn't sounded very happy with the change. That's because as authors, our characters are written a specific way, and their deaths have to have meaning to us and to our audiences. So before deciding to kill off your anchor character, ask yourself if the blowback you'll receive will be worth it. If the answer is yes, that their death is essential to move the plot forward, or the ripple effect will enhance the other characters in some way, then go forth. But know that you may lose a portion of your audience, at least for some time. Just remember, there's consequences to murder even when that character is fictional.